Well, welcome back. We have two polls that are going on that would be great if you could take a moment to answer. If you click on the polling icon at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the window and the first one and the first poll. Once you do that, the second poll should appear.
Do we dig into some questions?
How do we see the results?
Oh, Nancy, you might not be able to see the results. The one with the most votes right now is, do you have guidelines for determining the right scope for a project BPC plan? That one's got 51% right now.
Ah, that sounds like a great one to start with. So does anyone want to take a stab at that?
I think you have to talk to your program officer.
So that's the response.
I want you to do a ton. Or I want your PIs to do a ton. My expectations would be wildly unrealistic. You should talk to your program officer.
I will add in, it needs to have something where each PI and co-PI has a defined role. And I would encourage, I understand Colleen's desire for a ton, but I would encourage keeping it relatively simple so they're likely to do it without burnout.
And something they get excited about too. You know, you want to try to tap into what interests them. One of my faculty members, as he was writing his first project BPC plan for a proposal due last month, he shared that he actually got more excited the more he started writing. So that's what you want to see.
So we have example project plans anywhere?
So there is one example that we posted just yesterday under the project on bpcnet.org under the project BPC plan. At the bottom of the page is one example that was created using the CS at Mines departmental plan. So you can take a look at the CS at Mines departmental plan and then also take a look at that project plan to see how the two are connected. Mary will be posting soon a multi-institutional project plan example as well. The one that's currently posted is just a single institution. It's two PIs, PI Lovelace and co-PI Turing as just two examples. And Mary will be doing one with a multi-institution just to show what that one might look like.
And we have
and they're just examples. They're not real plans.
And we have example activities. So a PI could go to the set of 6 example activities and copy and paste that text into their proposal. So we have 6 there. One that includes working with Drew, other ones that include applying for the Commandit University Award, which involves collecting retention data. And Jeff talked through 4 of those this morning.
So there are 2 questions that people have, almost everyone, about half the people have, which I think are related, and maybe I'll ask you guys to comment on those. The first one is, how will faculty in my department use the departmental BPC plan for their proposals? And the second one is, how will we fit everything in the 2-page departmental BPC plan? So I think we could maybe, if you want to address those together.
I'll go ahead and go first. So yeah, when you fit it into a 2-page document, it becomes pretty small. So if you look at the departmental plan link on BPCnet and you go to the bottom of the page, there's actually 2 files that are posted from CS at Mines. One is our official departmental plan, and one is an internal document that we're using that is a bit longer. And I know that some departments are thinking of even having a longer internal document that will have a text that PIs can copy and paste. If they want to get involved in one of the departmental activities, they can just copy and paste and put it into their project plan, which I think is a fabulous idea, like we're doing with BPCnet activities that are available nationally, like Drew. What Colleen was mentioning earlier is we're creating text that you can just copy and paste into individual project plan.
I think also to the page limit, not all of the activities will be described at the same depth. You get around that partially by having an internal document, but it's to try and help you stay organized. And so you might just have a few words about something if it's not the main emphasis in your department plan.
Yeah, I think you can think of department plan as being partly the shared material everybody will need, your context information, right, that everybody will need for their individual project plans. It's partly a strategy document. This is what we're focusing on as a department, and it's partly an index to all the different projects you expect individual faculty to have. I think exactly how all those pieces fit together will vary, but it's all brief because you only have 2 pages.
We could go to another popular question was, how do we pick goals if we're just getting started? That's, you know.
I would say data goals. Because you got to get your data, right? And that can be your first goal, is to collect your data and analyze and figure out what your challenges are. We all have different challenges, and looking under the hood to try to understand what your challenges are is extremely valuable use of time.
You could have goals for how many people will fill out the Data Buddies survey.
And the goal could be, like Tracy said, to identify what the problem is.
And how frequently can people refine their goals? Maybe you could comment on that.
All the time.
Yeah, I think as soon as you've either accomplished a goal or realize it's too hard to accomplish, you make a new goal. There's a question about how do you evaluate a data goal, right? We collected the data is a reasonable evaluation. The number of people that participated in a survey, the number of faculty that reviewed the results, all of these things are measurable consequences.
Number of places where you collected. If you're collecting data on a class, well, we did it on 10 different sections. Yeah.
Great answers.
In the departmental plan, I'll just add, in the departmental plan, you actually are supposed to include when you will revise the document and how long this plan is good for. And we had talked about, suggestions. So I think it's like revise like in 1 year, and the plan is good for like 5 years, for example.
Good point. There's a couple related questions that maybe about a third of the people had, which are related to funding. So, is there funding available for departmental BPC plans, and how do we request budget for a project BPC plan?
I remember someone talked at the last workshop we held for this, just about, getting funding from industry, encouraging industry for donations on various activities that your department is doing. Their experience was that this was, especially for, various different underrepresented groups in computing, that this was a really key time to be asking for some funds to do something pretty substantial. And they were having success with that.
So that's external. I think this question, there's maybe 2 parts. One is, can you ask NSF
Internal.
for it as part of?
Or within, I know someone else, I haven't had this success, but somebody else got the university to fund someone within their department part-time to focus on BPC type activities. But I think earlier we had talked about how the funding works with, like you might have a departmental activity that requires some funding in order to do that activity. If you have faculty that plug into that activity for their project plan, they can request NSF to help fund that activity. An example is paying students to do, some type of outreach, for example. So we talked a little bit about that earlier in the day, I know.
So I think what you're saying, Tracy, is that, and it is in our FAQ on the bpcnet.org, is that PIs can request funding from NSF to do their BPC activities that are in their project plan. They do not have to include that in their original proposal budget. They can request that later. And so, that's And what you were just saying is if someone gets that funding for their project plan, if they're plugging that into their departmental activities, that is a way, it's not a direct way. The department doesn't ask NSF to fund the department BPC plan, but it will be funded through the individual PIs that are participating in it. So that's from NSF. And what you were mentioning earlier, was this is really a timely time to be asking industry to help support our BPC activities, because everyone has heightened awareness of how important this is for many different reasons. And when I was at Texas A&M before, and now I'm at the University of Illinois, and in both places our industrial affiliates partners were very interested in these types of activities.
I'll add to that. We found that both the NSF and industrial partners and like state funding agencies and so on are all happy to fund activities, but almost never whole plans. So if we go to the State Board of Education and say we'd like some money to integrate better with the high schools, they're happy to do that activity. But if we say I have this big plan, they're like, okay, that's interesting.
I guess here's a question. It might be good to just kind of end on this again, is what's the difference between broader impacts and BPC? Does someone want to address that?
I just wrote about it in the SAI's Committee of Visitors report. So when you write an NSF proposal, you always have to have a broader impact, and it tends to be connected. It tends to be connected to your research, and it often is things like, we're going to teach this material in an undergrad class, we're going to do a tutorial, we're going to do something like that. It's how does the work that you do have impact beyond just the research that you produce. One subset of broader impact is BPC. So that is a way in which to have impact through this grant, and it's not necessarily related to the grant, as we've been saying. And basically, the reason behind broader impact, which I only have learned now after some decades of writing NSF proposals, is this justifies the funding. Like, why is this being funded versus something else? Because this work is going to have this impact. And so, BPC is one impact of the project.
Does anyone else want to say anything before we kind of wrap up for today on that topic?
Broader impact is how your research project reaches outside of your community. And broader participation is how you help reduce the inequities in the computing community as a whole.
But I think it is true I totally agree with that, and that's kind of a more concise way of stating it. But it is true that the broader impacts, BPC can be a broader impact, and it does not have to relate to your research project. Just to kind of keep that in mind. I think we should wrap up and be respectful of people's time. Thank
you for joining us. Tomorrow we're going to be back here and still have a great day ahead. So we'll see you tomorrow.